Hello everyone, welcome to another commentary 1CC video. This one is Guwange on the Xbox 360. So I've already gotten a 1CC of Guwange on shmup, but because I'm doing the live demonstration this weekend, I've been needing to put in a bunch of time on the 360. And let me say, the 360 port is significantly more difficult than playing it on emulator because there is missing slowdown. It runs at 60 FPS, which is too fast. It should be running at 57.5 or something like that. And that may not seem like a big difference, but in the last boss fight against the baby and the final pattern, that extra speed and lack of slowdown makes a massive difference. It also is a fairly laggy port. I think I tested it once around 4 frames. I'll have to refresh myself, but I think that was the testing. I'll throw that on the screen here. But anyway, overall, I would prefer to play it on shmup, absolutely, but because of the rule set of not allowing unofficial emulation, my only option is to play it on the 360, so hopefully I can pull it off this weekend, or at least get respectable and get to the final pattern. So anyway, let's get started. I have 2 clears, one I just got and one I got earlier. Go ahead and go with the one that I just got, because I think this is pretty much what my run for the live demonstration should look like. And let me say, of course, it was a fairly close call. I have to apologize. Unfortunately, the replay data here has this sort of overlay on the right, and I can't really get rid of it no matter how hard I try. I could rotate sideways, but then it's at the bottom, and that's kind of annoying too, so I decided just to leave it up and going. So stage 1, nothing too difficult going on here. I do full chain this stage, but I don't really milk it for all it's worth. You can get a lot more coins in the stage than I do. This is basically just to show off a proof of concept for the run of, yeah, so you can chain the stages. This is how the chaining looks. This is how it works. One thing that I think is going to be difficult about this run is not only am I going to need to play it live, but I'm also going to need to commentate it live because, well, 1, I want to commentate it to sort of introduce myself to the Japanese audience, and 2, I don't believe the Japanese will be able to understand what I am saying, so hopefully some people in the chat will be able to understand the English, but I don't believe I could find myself a Japanese commentator. I don't know, maybe they'll throw one on the stream while I'm playing. I have no idea how that's going to work, but at the very least, I know some Japanese people do understand English, so to them, like Twilight EX, they'll be able to understand what I'm saying. And a few of my, I think I have a patron, Yutakaya, who's also Japanese and speaks English, so shout outs to him as well. I'm really excited to see what the viewership numbers will be, because from what I understand, the Japanese audience is significantly larger than the Western audience, and so this will probably be the first time they ever get introduced to me, so I've got to pull this off. I've been stressing about this a lot. I've been practicing a lot. My biggest concern was the 360 port itself, because prior to signing up for the event, I had been playing it on shmup and thought, okay, I got this. Yeah, I could totally pull off a clear live in a month from now. And I could, except then when I fired up the 360 and found, there's a lot of missing slowdown going on, especially on the final boss fights. That's where it gets real tricky. So I would say the missing slowdown affects 2 things very significantly. 1, it affects the chaining, because just the timing's different, and sometimes it's just harder to get your ghost out in time to get set up in position. Though it isn't impossible, it isn't straight up completely broken like the Dodonpachi ports on Saturn and PS1. It's still doable. You can still get good scores on this, like I did in my replay analysis video. I watched that high score. But as far as what you'd want to play ideally, I would say you definitely go with the shmup version or MAME rather than playing on the 360, just because that extra slowdown is a bit of a problem. Another issue with this port that definitely, so how I learned the game in a fairly short amount of time, I'd say over the course of a few weeks, is I first played it in shmup and of course used save states. I did that replay analysis video. I feel like more people should check that out. I know it's a little bit less exciting than some of the other how to shmup videos, but that information is intensely useful, and the process that I outline of doing replay analysis instantly benefited me after doing that analysis. The next day I started playing and already had a better idea of what I was doing, how to play the game, how to route it and stuff like that. Some of that you can pick up off of replay analysis, and then some of it you just got to grind out in save state practice to get a real feel for how the game works. And that's what I've done. Even though it's only been a few weeks, I've definitely put in a good amount of time on the game already. And I'm going to continue putting about 3 to 4 hours of practice in per day until Sunday, and probably on Sunday as well, so that I'm as fully prepared as I can be, so that if I choke and get absolutely murdered, I'll at least know that I did my best to prepare. Sometimes that's all you can do. I do want to do a video about live demonstrations and my thoughts on live demonstrations and why I love them so much and how underappreciated I feel that they are. Yeah, of course I hold the Shmup Slam series, which is all about live demonstrations. But even outside of that, I think there are other values to it, and I do kind of want to start exploring other avenues for live demonstrations, smaller scale ones, so it doesn't need to be this massive undertaking every time, right? Like smaller scale, maybe like weekly, not like weekly demonstrations because I don't have the schedule for that, but like a monthly type thing, like a baby slam or something like that. I don't know. It's still kind of a blueprint idea in my head, but I think there's something for it. Or a live tournament, that would be really cool. I think that's what I'm going to try hosting, where you get a group of players, and rather than having them play, you know, different games, have them, like, I think Toho World Cup kind of works like this, right? Where they play against each other live. I think that'd be really cool. The biggest challenge for that is definitely the fact that there is just a lack of players who all play the same games, right? And usually when you get players playing the same games, their skill tier is pretty lopsided one way or another. Like, for instance, Jamers and Blackisto and I all play Dodonpachi, and they would destroy me because they have just higher scoring routes and higher scoring potential than I do at the time. Though Dodonpachi is such a wild and chaotic game, maybe if I played really conservatively and something really bad happened to one of them, I could squeak out a win, you know, just through sheer variation of run and how wild the game is. But overall, you know, the competition isn't there. One idea that I did float by people that, again, whenever I try and introduce these sort of complex ideas to people on Discord and in conversations, they never seem to quite go over as much as I'm hoping that they do. So maybe me explaining it in this live commentary would be a little bit more useful. Is what if I did a like handicap system where, so let's say Blackisto and I play against each other in Dodonpachi in this live tournament, but I get a certain amount of score boost to my PB to kind of handicap it, like in golf. I think that's kind of a cool idea. I don't know why it didn't seem to go over that well with people. Maybe the concept is a little foreign to people who don't maybe play golf or something like that. But basically, handicap systems are a great way to get people who aren't within the same skill tier playing on the same skill tier. And it's only really possible to do in non-direct head-to-head games. Of course, fundamentally, it seems a little bit wrong that the player who just has a higher skill is playing at a handicap, but it also pushes them, right? It puts stakes. It makes them sweat. It makes them play at their absolute best, or pushes them further to play at their absolute best. And you also want to sort of handicap. The way you want to calibrate the handicap is basically both players have to play all out to win. So in order for me to beat Jamers, I couldn't just, you know, get a survival 2-all or something. This is all hypothetical, right? I'd have to bring the heat and basically hit my PB or be near my PB and him the same, right? That would be the idea, which I think would be really cool because it would reward different things. It wouldn't just reward peak skill, you know, it would also reward consistency. And that's what I love about the idea of live demonstrations is there are merits to being really consistent in shmups just out of sheer grind, but they aren't as directly rewarded as in other competitive games, like in fighting games, where consistency can take you a really, really long way towards winning a tournament. So I thought that would be a cool idea, is that, and maybe if, you know, this is a little bit hard with certain players like Jammers, where he's just better at all the games all the time because he's Jammers. But it would be kind of cool if you paired up two players and maybe one player was more skilled in one game and the other player was more skilled in the other. And so let's say for Dodonpachi, let's say I'm playing someone who isn't as good at Dodonpachi as I am. I don't have a handicap and they do. And then, or the other way around, I can't remember how you phrase that, but basically I'm playing at a disadvantage and they aren't. But then let's say they're better at Garega than me. And so then the second round of the tournament, we play Garega, but now I have the extra points and stuff. That would be really cool. I don't see why it's not possible, and I think it would make for a lot of really entertaining viewing. So I think pretty soon I want to give this a try. The reason why Toho is able to do this so well is because this is a strategic suicide, though. Not a meme. I actually did try to die there, because if you die, you regain 2 bombs, and then look, there's a health item right there. So that was a nice little recharge strat. Anyway, I'll probably talk a little bit more about Guwange, because that was my point about the tournament thing. But what I was saying going forward is one of my main focuses in 2021 is live demonstrations, both hosting them and playing in them, and also just upping my skill tier in general. I don't feel too bad about not talking about Guwange all that much, because you're going to see another Guwange video here from me very soon where I, you know, analyze my live demonstration, and hopefully it's not a complete train wreck. I was impressed with myself here, because usually I bomb for safety, but out of sheer grit, I dodged my way through there without getting hit, without having to bomb. You notice with all these boss fights, I'm just rapid shooting them. That's because this character's rapid shot's actually really powerful. And on the 360 port, you don't get as much slowdown using the old the ghost on and off trick. So basically, in some boss fights, especially the last boss, if you stick, or if you're chaining basically, if you stick your ghost on top of the boss, but then sort of feather it on and off, on and off, on and off at the right rhythm, you can basically get it to move with you fairly well. And you can also get it to hold the chain for the most part. It slightly goes down, so every now and then you have to do a nice long charge on it, but for the most part it'll hold the chain for you. Whereas just running around in rapid shot has 2 disadvantages. The first is obviously you're not going to be holding your chain, so it's a bad scoring strategy. The second disadvantage is actually a survival strategy, or there's 2 survival disadvantages. The first one is that you just move really, really fast, and so you have to have really, really good control over your character. Luckily, I'm using my great arcade lever, so I'm pretty good at moving really fast characters precisely. But the other disadvantage is that if you get hit while not in focus in Guwange, however you pronounce this game, you take more damage than if you are in focus. That's kind of an interesting mechanic of the game. So one thing you can do is, if a bullet's about to hit you and you know for sure, you can actually hold focus and sometimes reduce the damage that you take. A lot of the times you just lose half a bar if you're not in focus, so it can be a pretty risky strategy. But just this character's insane movement speed really helps me macro around a lot of patterns that maybe don't totally intend for them to be macroed around, or maybe, you know, that was kind of a trade-off that devs were going for. This section here is a nightmare. Every time I play it, I do it slightly differently, and every time I'm dissatisfied. There is a correct way to do that, but for some reason it never quite sticks in my head. Get that guy out. Then I should have went over. Oh, I got it this time. Okay, so this run I did a fairly good job on it. I hate that section because not only are the bullets hard to dodge, but you're actually on a really narrow little rooftop there, so you actually have less room to move around. That is one interesting thing about Guwange, or Guwange, that I really like, is how the environment is a real big deal. It's kind of a hybrid between playing a horizontal shmup and a vertical shmup, but in a unique way, because it has a lot of horizontal shmup characteristics. Like, as you can see now, I am scrolling horizontally, and there are environmental hazards like in horizontal shmups. But then, of course, it has a lot of vertical characteristics, like the bullets are actually coming at you vertically. I think the concepts are really, really cool, and I'm surprised they haven't been further explored in the genre. I would say if there's one style of shmup that needs more exploration, it's this Guwange style, where you're kind of a hybrid between a horizontal and a vertical. Um, you have interesting movement mechanics. The ghost system's really interesting. Of course, for convenience, that would be cool if they made some changes to it in the sequel, to where you have a little bit more control. Like if you held a certain button, you could force it to move along with you, and then if you held another button, you could free aim it. I think that would be better. Of course, it would be better than the one we have now, where you are kind of stuck in between, where you can move left to right with it, but that also moves your ghost. And so a lot of the skill of the game, especially in the later stages, actually comes down to being able to control your movement and your ghost together and coordinating them. So as far as this being a good introductory shmup, I don't feel like it is, because it has a very unique mechanic that takes a good amount of routing and precision to understand. But once you get the hang of it, it's actually really, really fun. And the ghost is very powerful. It can do all kinds of really good stuff. And once you get really good with it, you can handle the enemy waves much more efficiently than it would seem at first, because you can force a lot of cancels with it. So as you can see here, I'm sort of free-shotting the boss again. I'm not using my ghost on him. You can, but it just makes it more complicated. Oh, that was kind of dirty. Oh, I remember I took that to the face. I usually don't get hit during that pattern, so that surprised me. I took that hit like that. But I came into the level with a really, really high amount of resources and pretty much aced the stage itself, to where I don't think I died or anything, right? I don't even know if I took a hit off the back, but I came in with 3 bars, so I couldn't have taken a full hit. That pattern usually isn't too bad, but the way it was positioned there was really risky, so I just bombed him. What's really cool is if you bomb him and stuff and you hit him with the full bomb, at the end there he usually gets you get a knockdown on him, like a fighting game. It's pretty cool. I actually really like this boss fight when you're just free aiming it. When you're trying to take him out while also jading, it gets really ugly, but just free aiming, it's a really, really fun fight. Okay, that was stage 5.5. It's kind of like its own little mini stage there. And we go into stage 6. This stage I have played for probably 10 hours straight now. Well, not 10 hours straight, but 10 hours in total. Maybe even more, just this stage. It's the absolute most critical stage for a lot of reasons. Even more than the typical cave reasons. It has a very unique mechanic here that you're not going to find in other cave games that I'm aware of. And I'll show you what that is coming up. But yeah, this opening section here, what I should have done is I should have used my ghost on those guys. I don't know why I was auto-firing there, other than just, you know, I'd reset and played the run so many times that sometimes it starts to get a little confused in my head and I do things too early. So right here is one of the most critical points in the entire run. That's where you can get the full recharge, and I get the uber full recharge, because not only do I fully recharge my health, but I also suicide here to recharge my bombs. The most challenging part of this section, I'm not lying, is getting a fast suicide. That seems like that wouldn't be much of a problem, but it's surprising how hard it is to kill yourself when you're trying, right? YouTube, don't demonetize me for saying that, but it can be surprisingly hard to get that suicide in time. I mean, you can get it, but you need to be fast enough to where you respawn and kill the spiders to get the full health recharge. Otherwise, you just suicided an entire life away, and if you come in with low resources, that's basically the end of the run, because if you don't get that full recharge health item, it's basically over if you're doing that suicide strat, because you need all your resources coming into the bosses. You need them all, every dime. So I would say if you're playing on arcade, that's not necessarily true, because you can just play really, really well on the baby and on the final boss. But because of the missing slowdown, both the baby and the final boss are significantly more challenging, to the point where you need both luck and really, really high precision to get through them without getting hit. Both of them have a certain amount of RNG to them too, which is really frustrating. This is my little strat. So you bomb, and then you stand on this part of the screen right here, and you'll slide through. That way you don't have to risk that section. this section here is obnoxious. It's kind of fun, I'm not gonna lie, but it's also kind of obnoxious. So what it's doing is it's in this kind of weird diagonal scroll, and these guys are spawning behind you and around you, and they do home onto you, but they follow these weird sort of crescent moon shaped walk patterns. And so it's all about hurting them around the screen without getting hit by their suicide bullets. And also sometimes you have to weave through them like that. Using that one extra bomb isn't a big deal because I'm gonna do another bomb recharge strat. So that bomb really doesn't have a whole lot of purpose, other than it can sometimes make this upcoming boss fight slightly easier. So this boss fight is really critical to get right for two reasons. One, you need to get the bomb recharge, health recharge correct. The second reason is because you need to get out of it basically fully stocked up. If you take a hit during this, which can easily happen because of how wild these patterns are, again, much more difficult on the 360 than arcade. Arcade, you get a lot more slowdown, you get a lot more time to react to what's going on. On 360, you do not. And so if you get out of position, it can get real ugly. So you notice I'm not attacking the branches first. So there's branches on the left and right. Those hold the special upgrade items. Okay, so here's a strategic suicide that was intentional, because then I recharged my bombs, and then you pick up the health item to recharge your health. The order is incredibly important. You can't pick up the health and suicide, because then you're down a lot. You're down like 4 or 5 bombs. That's basically potentially the end of the run. But if you suicide first and then pick up the health item, now you've got this substantial boost. So it's really funny how much the order of things matter. And in fact, on the left there is a bomb stock item, and you want to collect that last, because if you collect that first and then you suicide, you lose that extra bomb basically. So it's all very complicated. I hate that pattern. Made it through. I'm coming into this fully stocked up and ready to lock and load. That's probably why this is a clear. And so here we go with the baby patterns. These are fairly accurate to how they work in arcade. These ones here where you can get some slowdown on them by doing the ghost on and off strat. I'm not sure what you call it. Right here, I'm going to do a planned bomb. So in arcade, I can get through the baby without having to bomb, but in this mode, I gotta use the bomb because the patterns right here are just way faster. This is where the little extra boost in speed really makes a difference. And then especially this pattern here. So in arcade, you can get this pattern to go nice and slow, and you can just kind of leisurely dodge through it if you know what's gonna happen. But look how it runs on 360. Even when I'm doing the slowdown strat with the ghost on and off, it basically does nothing. Same thing with those two patterns there. It's better just to bomb through them. The thing about it is that I've practiced this phase 1 so much that I almost feel more comfortable fighting phase 1 unarmed than fighting the baby's last patterns. On the 360 specifically. On arcade, it's the other way around, where the baby's last patterns aren't really all that bad. Unfortunate that I take the hit so early. So the way it works is because I didn't do enough damage, I'm just going to have to bomb out of this. It's definitely worth it to do that. It's not worth it to try and sort of scrounge out the kill without the bomb, because it's like 3 more patterns of dodging, and most likely if you're not taking a hit, you're going to get a scratch, and that's worse than just bombing your way through on a risk-reward type of proposition. So that was a really bad first life. So I have to play out of my mind now to get this clear, because that was a really bad first stock there. I needed to do a lot more damage normally. Luckily I pull it together here. So I wish I could explain the strategy of this attack a little more, but it's very complicated. But basically what you want to do is when the clouds are first opening up, you want to put a little bit of damage on him with the ghost, and then you need to do this kind of weird rhythm tap dodge type thing where you're turning the ghost on and off, but at a slower rhythm than normal, but enough to sort of extend the slowdown as much as possible. That was a really clutch respawn. So the thing is had I tried to summon the ghost there, I might not have been able to kill him as quickly as I did. It's kind of complicated, but that was a really clutch respawn. So luckily through the clutchness on the last life there, I was able to pull it out. And I'm really hoping that when I go for the live demonstration, I'm able to come in with at least 2 lives there and not get completely bulldozed in the first there, because you can do a ton of damage on that first phase there, or on that last pattern with your first extra extend. I have on one try gotten a 1 life clear of that pattern, but it's only happened 1 time on 360. On arcade, I can do it much more often. It's a lot more feasible, but unfortunately on 360, because of how much faster that pattern moves, and also it just seems like it's harder to lay damage on him because there's less slowdown, so it's harder to get your ghost in position and get yourself in position as efficiently. It's just much more difficult to get through that pattern. But anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. I had a lot of fun playing and commentating this game, and please do not forget to check out my run this Saturday, this Sunday, January 10th, I believe, and it's going to be on a Japanese live stream. I'll post the link. Well, it's on my Twitch channel, so that's not hard. My Twitch channel is in the description. I'll post a link to the schedule, though, depending on your time zone. For me, it's 2 a.m., so I'm going to be up late. I would like to say that that's hard for me, but I'm actually recording right now at 2 a.m., so it's kind of my usual time for shmupping and playing shmups and that sort of thing. So let me end here by thanking my patrons. So thank you to Adam Pearson, Adrian Reyes, Dingo, Handicap, Anthony A, Ben Wynn, Borgie22, Brian Shiver, Corio, Disco Stas Leia, Dominic NG, Eric H, Full Set, Retro Schmupper, Hausu, Ilya, Kiwi, JLab, JB RPG, Joe Angelo, Gameboy Guru, K, Malays, Mark Toms, Martin Worrell, Maz, Mayhair Calendrian, Queen Charlene, Nathaniel Davis, and Electron, 9, Okla Googles, Philip Mason, Ram Q, Raul, Sketchy Raccoon, Smacky Factor, TRM, Sugumo, Ishi, Plasmo, and Utakaya. And also shoutouts to Macho Manmo. Thanks for watching, everyone.